Hey folks, it's Tim McClellan again with Western Heritage Furniture. I'm showing off a pool table that we're in the middle of constructing right now. What you saw there in the beginning was the conceptual drawing of the finished pool table. Its design is based on our Teton Collection. The Teton Collection is a massive line of furniture that we built that is represented in name, of course, by the Teton Mountains in western Wyoming. They're some of the most gorgeous, jagged, wildest mountains in America. So I'm going to go through some of the details of what's in this particular piece. The superstructure is made by a 12-ply plywood core. Now this is a super stable material that will keep rigid and straight for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. What we're looking at here in the exterior of the table on the outside are oak boards, hand-hewn oak beams that were salvaged from a building back in Iowa. Now the interesting history of this oak beam, what I want to go over is, here's a chunk of it. These beams were 20 feet long. There were two of them and they were identical. And I'll show you a picture of them. This one got a little wet because it's snowing and raining outside. But here's an image of the oak beams shot before the rains came. And what we're looking at here is identical symmetrical oak beams. Now it's interesting about that is these were made from trees cut down and hauled out of the forest. So these were literally trees that were in the forest, and the original artists who went and got these beams that literally cut down these oak beams, dragged them out of the forest, and then in order to turn these logs, these round logs, into usable structural materials, he actually had to hand hewn them. He had to make them square. Now these beams are older and been around longer than there were sawmills in the area. Their history of them is basically unknown. They were found inside of a barn, a 100-year-old barn in Iowa. The barn was constructed of dug fir, but in the beginning of the construction, they actually used these beams, which were salvaged from a much older structure somewhere around that neck of the woods, and they were then reclaimed from an older building and reused. My guess would be that they're in the neighborhood of 200 to 250 years old. What we're looking at here is, if you'll notice, there are these slice marks in the top. These slice marks come from an axe. What happens here is, if you hit this with an axe in a consistent motion all the way down this round log, if you can visualize a round log, you're coming with your axe and you're hitting this in a consistent motion. So you walk down the log 20 feet, hitting it like this. Then once that's done, you go back with what's called an adze, and I don't have one here to show you. I'd love to, but I don't have one. What an adze is it's a sideways axe. It's like a hoe-shaped axe. Well, with the adze, after you've done all your axe cuts, you stand over your log and you swing the adze, and the adze chips between your cuts, taking off flakes from a round log, and you generally, walking along it, will be able to get yourself one square flat side. Then you rotate the log. You actually rotate it 180 so that the flat side's down, and you go through the same motion, coming back through with your adze and squaring this off. Now, one of the things I appreciate so much about these particular beams is how straight and true these came out to be. Now, this is the worst part of the beam because I've cut up and used all the other parts for the table, but so you can see where this was the top of the tree. And you can see the hand-cut mortises where the mortise and tenons would actually go in. But what we've got here is this artist, this craftsman, took great pride in his work, and he made these beams identical and flawless. Now, I can't even express what that takes to cut one hand-hewn beam perfect, but to do it over and over again enough to build a building is just phenomenal. This artist right here is the greatest craftsman involved in this table, without a doubt. We've got a little slab here of what that wood looks like. Then that's oak, and it's very old, and you can count the rings, start counting them out. It's quite a few years old, this log. But it's really super hard and seasoned. I don't know if you can pick this up, but this is like hard as nails. This wood is unbelievable. It's really something special to work with. What I've done is I've taken this and I've slabbed off the hand-hewn part, the part of the exterior where the original craftsman, the original artist, cut these into squares. And I'm now using these parts and these components to put around the pool table. So what you've got is you can see the marks from his ads, from his labor in the wood. And this is what the wood looks like on the inside. It's an oak, and it's just an extremely hard seasoned oak wood. So what I'm doing is I'm actually putting it on the exterior of this pool table. So this pool table is actually redundant in its construction. It has the original solid ply core, and then it has another whole structure put on it with this wood here. And what I'm incorporating in this is a combination of leather here. Now this is not the actual panel. This panel will end up being hand carved and tooled, and it'll have a silver concho in the middle. But I'm just using this for demonstration. So it's going to be a combination of metal and copper. We come from a copper mining town in Jerome, Arizona, so we incorporate a lot of copper just to represent the old miners from the earlier days in America. What you'll see here is a crinkled copper that'll end up in a panel in here. What we're shooting for finish-wise is this. This is what the finish on the copper is going to look like, but right now in its raw stage, it's like this. So you can see how this is going to have a copper, a leather, and then a barnwood panel here surrounded by the hand-hewn oak superstructure. What we've got on this particular wood, I'm salvaging wood that came out of Oregon, northern Oregon, just south of the Washington border. And it's a Douglas fir. And this is, again, it's wet because it was rained on and snowed on outside. But this is one of the boards that came out that I'm using on these raised panels here on the side. So what we've got here is a Douglas fir that this tree cut, probably the building itself was about 75 years old, so maybe 75, 80 years ago this was cut down. This was one of the original huge Douglas firs that grew on the West Coast. You know, you've seen the pictures of the cars driving through the redwoods and the sequoias and the Doug firs. This is one of those trees. All of us can grab hands and reach around and circle one of these trees. I'm incorporating this because it represents a time in America when the forests were native and they were untouched and they were natural. And I'm bringing that into this table as well. What I've got here is actually a piece of walnut that came out of Wisconsin. What we're looking at here is a beautiful, clear, clean piece of walnut. This piece of walnut and others like it came from a guy who visited me 4 or 5 months ago. He relocated here to Arizona, and he's 82 years old. And he cut this walnut tree down. As you can see on the end here, this was actually hand cut down with an axe. He cut this walnut tree down 60 years ago. Cut down 2 of them on his property 60 years ago. Took them to the sawmill, had them slabbed up, and then basically forgot about it for 60 years. And he brought them to me and he said, I want to do something special with this walnut. I don't want it to just be your average production piece. I want to do something special with it. So I'm going to incorporate this walnut in the surface around the top, in the rail. So around the top we're going to have the rail where the bumpers and the felt comes up to. This is where the sights will actually be inlaid in the top. The sights are, each sight is a handmade piece of jewelry from a local artist. And they're basically turquoise with a silver bezel. So we're going to work those all around the outside here. And the tooled leather will also be incorporated on the outside edge. Philip Smith of Steel Strike makes the world's best tooled leather, in my opinion. And that's what's going to be on the outside edge. So, quick overview. That's what we're working on right now. It's a one-of-a-kind pool table, and I'm incorporating the true artist who cut these beams down, a jeweler who's making very fine jewelry sights, the gentleman who cut this walnut tree down 60 years ago, Philip Smith, who does the leather tooling, and then Western Heritage, myself, Tim McClellan, putting the pool table together. So that's what we're looking at. And when we're all done, we're going to inlay in the top. This is the prototype, and we're going to inlay in the top a handmade by the same jeweler, Noah Pfeffer. A full silver Western Heritage logo will be inlaid in the top.